Okay, we're streaming live. Here we go.
Okay, and then I just pressed go live.
Yep, so we're live on everywhere. Okay, so hey everyone, this is Catherine from Microbalance Health Products, and I am holistic nutrition coach, kinesiologist, personal trainer, and functional health practitioner. And she specializes in helping high achievers overcome weight loss resistance, chronic fatigue, inflammation, and she addresses root causes such as gut health, hormonal imbalances, nervous system dysregulation, and environmental toxins. So, welcome, Rachel. And she also lives in Alaska, which is super cool.
Yes, thank you for having me.
So I wanted to kind of start off with your mold story and how mold came to be a piece of what you look at with your clients now, especially when they're doing all the things but not achieving their goals. So,
Yeah, absolutely. So my mold story kind of has like two time periods. The one that I talk about the most is the one that happened in 2024 because it was the most severe mold exposure that I had ever had. Mold exposure was one of the like root causes as to why I developed health issues, mainly like in the beginning of my healing journey. But the main thing was honestly just stress. However, I worked for years healing my body, healing my gut, increasing my energy, and losing about like 30, 35 pounds. But when I moved into my new apartment, it was very humid. And there wasn't any mold when I first moved in, but the longer I lived there, the more I noticed mold just kept growing and showing up to the point where I would literally wake up in the middle of the night because of the like smell of mold, and people would smell mold on my clothes. It was
wow.
horrible. I would have to be cleaning mold out of my bathroom. There would be like fuzzy mold on my floorboards. So I didn't even need to get like the air tested, or I didn't need to bring in a professional mold examine company. that's not the name of them,
Like
but
an
whatever.
inspector and a professional
Yes,
inspector. Yeah.
inspector, because I could see it everywhere and I could literally smell it. So with that being said, I had to make the tough decision to move out of my apartment because number one, I started developing bloating, chronic fatigue again, uh, and the biggest thing for me and why I was like, okay, I need to get out of here was because of the pain that was coming back. I've had reoccurring joint pain in my muscles from when I first started developing health issues. Chronic pain was one of the biggest things that I had to deal with. I had pain, literally nerve pain down my arms and my legs, joint
Mhm.
pain in every single joint. It was systemic, which is why. But the biggest thing for me where it targeted was my SI joints. I've always had issues in my SI joints. But for this, it targeted my SI joints so bad that I would not be able to walk sometimes. Like I would try to like roll over in bed and I could not move because of
Oh
how
wow.
much pain I was in. And
So
then I
can
would
you tell the audience a little bit like what are your SI joints for
Yes.
anybody who doesn't?
I guess that is not a very common joint. So the SI joint is the tiny little, it's supposed to be an immovable joint or like pretty much immovable joint between your, like in your pelvis region, kind of lower back place. So kind of like go down the spine at the bottom of the spine, like main spine. There's these like SI joints to the side. They're right here.
Oh
And
wow.
when they're aggravated, this can cause like nerve pain down your legs and very sharp pain in your back. A lot of people tend to be like, "Oh, my back hurts," but it's actually their SI joints. Not all the time, but it's actually a lot more common
Mm-hmm.
than what people know. But it's just because people don't know what the SI joint is, because no one talks about it. But
Yeah.
um, anyway, that was where that was kind of like the deciding factor of like I need to get out of this situation because I literally would be in so much pain I couldn't move for a few minutes. I would walk, like I would not be able to walk without like constant support to the bathroom in the morning. When I would get more movement in, we'll kind of get into this a little bit later, my pain would start to decrease because I'd be like lowering inflammation and stuff like that. But yes, so the moldy apartment got super bad. I had to move out of it, which I had to throw away about like half of my belongings in the process because of mold contamination. A lot of the stuff in my closet as well as for some reason, everything under my bed that I had got moldy. The weird thing was I had a skateboard under my bed and I hadn't used my skateboard in forever. And then when I was moving, I grabbed it and there was mold all over my skateboard. That's
Yeah.
how bad the mold was. I was like, okay, this is good that I'm finally moving out of this place. And that it's no surprise as to why I would wake up in so much pain because I was breathing in so many mycotoxins.
Yeah. I mean, and that brings me to a little tip for anyone listening. If you're wondering if humidity might be the cause of your mold issue, like it was in Rachel's apartment, look on the underside of your furniture, because when when humidity is the factor creating the mold, you'll start growing. Anywhere dust collects on your furniture is where the mold will grow because of just simply the moisture in the air, not because of a leak or some other contamination. So if you're wondering if your humidity is too high, if you have mold or what looks like white dust on the underside of your belongings or furniture, you have a humidity problem for sure.
Yeah. A big
Okay.
one in Alaska too is like if you get a lot of water in your windows, since we have a lot of like
Right.
it's always humid in the winter because there's water literally everywhere. And so when it gets like too cold, you'll get a ton of water in your windows. Way too much.
Yeah. And there's that temperature differential too between the inside and the outside in Alaska, I'm sure.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
Okay. So you moved out, but you still had the repercussions of what had happened to your body.
Yes.
And I want you to share, we've kind of talked about it before, but I want you to share with everyone listening the difference with what was going on because of the havoc the mold wreaked on your body versus maybe just like a setback before and like your training or your nutrition. So because I think one of the most valuable things you can share with people on this live is identifying weight loss resistance that's caused by an environmental toxin versus, maybe you're just not being really accurate with yourself with what you're eating and how much you're moving. So
that is definitely a really valuable piece of information for people to understand, not only because I see a ton of coaches online putting people down because they're not able to lose weight, telling them, well, you're not tracking perfectly or you're not doing your workouts perfectly, which makes people feel really discouraged. And while you have to be in a calorie deficit to lose weight, that is facts. There could be reasons people aren't able to get into that calorie deficit, one of them being environmental toxin, which is something that people need to understand. Sadly, however, it is difficult to really uncover if you don't know what you're looking for, if that you do have a mold toxicity symptom or issue, because most people's apartments or homes are not as bad as mine. Most people don't see mold growing on their floorboards. It is normal for some people to see like mold in their bathroom just because it is a humid place. But the biggest like difference between like, okay, I'm experiencing these symptoms because of mold versus I'm maybe experiencing a flare up in my health overall, just maybe I put too much stress on my body, was the gradual persistence of it. It didn't feel like, oh, I like worked too hard the last week and now I'm more tired, now I'm in more pain, whatever. Having chronic health issues, I was used to that sort of kind of thing. If I worked too hard, put too much stress on my body, I would notice a flare up in my symptoms. But when I was like, okay, this is definitely mold toxicity, was because the issues kept slowly coming on and coming on. And it wasn't super sudden, if that makes sense. And that's usually how mold toxicity, not all the time, but that's usually how mold toxicity will develop, because it's slowly building up. The mycotoxins are slowly building up into your body, and then your symptoms just get worse and worse. This isn't like all the way how it happens, but it's very, very common. Another reason a lot of people struggle to identify this as mold toxicity is because symptoms of mold toxicity or mold exposure are very common commonly related with chronic disease symptoms or autoimmune
Mhm.
disorders, or like gut issues, or pretty much anything you could possibly think of, which adds another layer of difficulty in uncovering if it's actually the mold toxicity. Additionally, a lot of people will only get like air tests for a mold, and that's not super accurate all of the time, which can also make it a little bit more difficult to uncover if it's mold toxicity. So for me, I think the biggest thing that people need to like understand for mold toxicity is the slow progression of the symptoms, and the symptoms not really like plateauing out, but just steadily getting worse. That was kind of what I noticed. Like if I had a flare up, it would be like a flare up. It would be about the same for like a week, maybe a month. When I was like first healing my body, they would last a long time, but the symptoms would be about the same. But for this one, it just kept getting worse and worse. The more mycotoxins was pretty much destroying my body and increasing inflammation. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. So I was wondering, like how you approach this with clients now, because I do think that, um, I don't know what, for whatever reason, and I'm sure a lot of people joining will agree. A lot of people affected by mold toxicity and the ones hit hardest tend to be the highest performers,
Yes.
the
Yep.
type A personality people, people who probably before it happened had everything dialed and were
Yeah.
going like 90 to nothing and work,
Yep.
fitness, whatever else. And then it's like you hit this brick wall, and your whole life you've kind of been able to just dig down deep and push through. But when it's mold, it's something entirely different. Like um you don't have that mental fortitude because there's really nothing there to dig down and like
Yeah.
pull out of yourself as far as energy. And
Yeah.
so I was just wondering, like, how as a professional, like in the fitness space and exercise space, you have that conversation with your clients, or maybe introduce maybe mold testing. I mean, I don't know that you do this, but you know, I was just wondering about that, with what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So when when I have a new client and I'm trying to figure out why they're struggling with weight loss resistance or gut issues or chronic fatigue or some sort of chronic symptom, the first thing that I do is have them fill out quite a few comprehensive questionnaires so I understand all of their symptoms.
Hmm.
Most of the time, when people are coming to me with weight loss resistance, they have nervous system dysregulation, very high stress. They typically have gut issues. Usually some sort of hormonal imbalance in some area. And so those are kind of like, you could say root causes, but also kind of surface level things. That's like, okay, well, they have nervous system dysregulation. We need to work on that. We need to help them optimize their hormones, help them heal their gut. But then the second layer that we need to uncover is why they have that dysfunction in the first place. For many people, it may be as simple as, okay, they have nervous system dysregulation, which is the root cause of why I can kind of get into this,
Yeah.
but it is kind of the root cause as to why people may even develop those negative symptoms from mold toxicity. There's like a few reasons why some people are more sensitive to it, but nervous system dysregulation is a really big one, which pretty much is like a fancy way to say you're super stressed,
Yeah.
or you've been so stressed for so long you're just completely burnt out. There's different layers to it.
Yeah.
And then the second layer is, of course, mold testing, whether this be testing your environment or testing your body through functional labs to see if you do have lab numbers associated with mold toxicity. And then from there, you want to implement protocols to help them in healing their body, both in their lifestyle, stress management, nutrition, and of course, the supplementation side of things. One of the biggest mistakes that I see in the field and I see people make is purely just going to the supplements, which I love. I love integrating supplements. You kind of have to when it comes to mold toxicity. toxicity, you have to integrate supplements in order to get rid of those mycotoxins, eliminate those mycotoxins from your body. But a lot of people underestimate the utilization of nutrition as well as their lifestyle habits because, and I can kind of get into this a little bit now, if you have nervous system dysregulation, this pretty much primes your body for becoming negatively affected by the mycotoxins. There's also like genetic SNPs that people talk about that may, increase your risk of being negatively affected by the mycotoxins. But when your body is in the nervous system, when you have a dysregulated nervous system, your body is usually living in fight or flight and or just in a freeze state, depending on where they're at with nervous system dysregulation. And when that happens, the last thing the body thinks it needs is to heal. And it creates a place for toxins, for pathogens, and inflammation to kind of just thrive in your body. And this is why the mycotoxins will thrive with high achievers, type A personalities, people who are super stressed, who are go-getters, right? Because they kind of prime their body to welcome that sort of thing. And so I wanted to kind of say that because the biggest thing in helping you, of course, you need to eliminate it through supplementation, but you also need to make sure that you get your body in a place where it's no longer a hospitable environment for those mycotoxins or other toxins that are in your environment as well.
Yeah. I mean, and you talked about this first, like number one is leaving the scene of the crime or fixing it if you're able. Because unfortunately, it's like if you're living and breathing it every day, no amount of exercise, nutrition, supplements are going to outdo that.
Nope.
And that's
and I tried to do that.
Yeah.
I was very, very happy to have the Microbalance Health products while I was in my apartment. I used your guys' products to help try to mitigate the mold, but my environment was just way too humid for it to actually get rid, because it was just everywhere.
Oh,
the mold was everywhere. And I feel so bad for the new people in my apartment because I told the landlords about the issue and they're like, oh yeah, okay. I was like, all right. Well, there's not really much I can do about that, but
yeah, I mean, it's hard to help people understand how dangerous it can be. But at least you were able to leave.
Yes.
Okay.
Thankfully.
So I'm going to try to keep us. Okay. So I would love for you to share some insights on nutrition, number one, and exercise when mold is in the picture. Absolutely. Or it was in the picture and you're at a place where you're trying to start exercising again. You're trying to start eating in a way that is, will help you. Like you're not eating just to survive. You're eating to achieve maybe some physique goals or weight loss goals. So we can talk about that. And then I really think, any tips you can give on kind of how you approach nutrition with yourself, and then ways to look at movement in different phases of recovery. Because I do think I am a huge believer in, even when you're dealing with health issues, movement is really important to both healing your body and your mind. Like mentally, you need to move just as much as you do physically. So
absolutely. Yeah.
I'll quit talking.
So I'll start on the nutrition side of things. So first thing when it comes to looking at nutrition and training, you need to try to reduce the amount of stress that you're putting on your body in order to help you heal. So I would not recommend going into a steep deficit. If you are in a steep deficit, I would probably go back to maintenance to help reduce the level of stress that you are putting on your body in the beginning, for sure. And then as for exercise, I would reduce the intensity. Listen to your body and what your body is able to do. Again, for me, one of the biggest symptoms was chronic pain and fatigue, which makes working out super hard, a little difficult. So you kind of just have to figure out what symptoms you have and what your body is able to do. But one of the best things you can do when you're starting protocols to help heal your body and eliminate the mycotoxins is to help reduce stress as much as you can. So as for specific things for nutrition, one of the best things you can do is, number one, focus on eating anti-inflammatory foods. Of course, reducing the amount of highly processed foods that you're eating. But when I'm coaching my clients to nutrition, I try to focus less on like what foods they can't eat and just focus really hard on the foods that they should be adding into their diet. And so making sure that you're eating anti-inflammatory foods, which, if I'm not going to go into all of the anti-inflammatory foods because we don't have enough time in this podcast, but if you're confused, just eat as whole foods as you possibly can, and you're likely going to be good to go. There's some individualization into that as to if you have certain food sensitivities that may have been sparked by the mold toxicity, or the gut issues that were caused maybe by the mold toxicity, or underlying gut issues. Everyone is different, so please remember that. But the best thing is to help reduce inflammation, and eating anti-inflammatory foods and reducing the inflammatory foods is a really wonderful way to start with your nutrition. And then the second layer of nutrition that I would really recommend focusing on is eating what I call liver-loving foods. This is a big thing that a lot of people miss when helping their body heal. So I know some coaches who kind of use supplements in this aspect where they just give people like a meal replacement that is like full of a bunch of micronutrients, but I'm not a big fan of that. I like helping my clients eat real foods. There's greater bioavailability typically when you're eating whole foods, and you also get a wider range of micronutrients when you're eating whole foods. And so a few of my favorite to help support your liver and your lymphatic drainage would be Brazil nuts. They're really high in selenium, so they're really helpful in supporting your detoxification pathways. Another one is citrus fruits. They're really high in vitamin C and antioxidants. Those are also really helpful in reducing inflammation and supporting your liver health. Leeks. That is a super random one, but just one that I thought about. Let me try to remember here. What do I? Chlorophyll is one that I use as well to help support detoxification, or you can just eat a ton of green leafy vegetables. Those are really good ones to integrate as well. And those are some of my favorites. If I went into all of them, that would take a little bit too long. But if you're unsure where to start, those are some good places to start. And then as for the exercise side of things, again, as I mentioned in the beginning, you really need to help reduce the amount of stress that you're putting on your body and figure out what works best for you. For me personally, I was doing like sprints and running and exercising really hard before my symptoms started getting worse. And so once they started getting worse, I was like, okay, I need to slow down. And I was also kind of forced to slow down. But as a type A personality, I kind of just want to push myself. And so I had to force myself to slow down a little bit. And so I focused on walking. If I didn't have energy to do anything else, I walked. Stretching was another exercise modality that I implemented a lot to help support lymphatic drainage, to help support, my gut as well, to keep things moving through my body, and so the mycotoxins could help eliminate. And then I also integrated strength training as well, but I decreased the intensity a lot. Like sometimes if I was tired or in pain, I would just go into the gym and do three exercises, super chill, super light, and just walk out. If that's all I could do, that was all I could do. But I try not to push my body at this point.
Okay. That's really helpful. And like on the movement side of things, do you want to talk about like some specific lymphatic drainage type movement? Because that's really important to get your lymph flowing, just to help things move out of your tissues and your cells, and to become available to be excreted and removed by your body.
Yeah. So one of the most common ones, as I mentioned a little bit before, is stretching. I think like sun salutations is a common one that a lot of practitioners recommend, or you can just do general stretching if you don't want to follow a specific routine. The second one that I love using is manual cupping. So I personally use my hands, or I'll use a cup. I do like actual cupping for my face to help reduce inflammation in my face. That's more so an aesthetic thing. But you can also do cupping on like the specific lymph node sites, like behind your ears, your clavicles, armpits, and then down. There's a lot of YouTube videos on the specific sites that you want to implement. Dry brushing is another way that you can help stimulate lymphatic flow. For me personally, I found it's best to stimulate the lymph nodes with the manual cupping is what it's called, and then do dry brushing after, and then take a shower, and you'll be good to go. You can also get like professional services like a lymphatic massage. That's a really common one that people do, or you can get like actual like cupping from a professional if you really want to. But honestly, those are not necessary. There's a lot of like at home things that you can do. Another one that is really common in the healing space is rebound. So pretty much either just jumping up and down or jumping up and down on a trampoline is a really good way to help stimulate lymphatic flow. Vibration plates are also common. I haven't used a vibration plate. There are caveats to that. So if you are thinking of implementing a vibration plate, it is good, but there are some people who shouldn't be using a vibration plate, such as like people who have fibroids and stuff like that.
Yeah, they are. And I want to apologize to everyone about my internet and me going on and off the screen. We're in the middle of a really bad storm where I live, and so I keep losing my signal. So I'll try to stick with it as much as I can. So I apologize. But
yeah, Kevin said, yeah, he mentioned vibration plates as well. They're really helpful in moving lymph. You just need to make sure you're not one of the caveats that shouldn't be using it.
Okay. And how do you know that? Did you already say that? I'm so sorry if I'm.
Yeah. So one of them that I can think on the top of my head is people who have fibroids, or I think if someone has like endometriosis, possibly. And there was one autoimmune disorder, I believe, that shouldn't do it. I cannot remember off the top of my head. But if you give it a search on Instagram, you'd probably be able to find creators who've talked about the caveats to it. I wouldn't be super, super worried. I've just seen a few things about that, so I wanted to mention it as I talk about vibration plates.
Yeah. Okay. So we have a question. So can you please explain what cupping is?
So the manual cupping that I was talking about, I honestly don't know if that is the right word for it, but whenever I've looked up YouTube videos and heard about it, that's what it is. It pretty much is where you kind of rub the lymph nodes like this, like 20 times or something, or you can even tap it. So there's a lymph node behind your ear, obviously. And then you could tap or rub your clavicle, armpit, stomach, behind your knees. Those are some of the main area like points that you want to do that. The probably more main understood, like what you're probably thinking cupping is using like, you know, where they put like the fire in the glass ball, or even like a plastic cup where you like squeeze it and then it suction cups to your body to help, you know, promote blood flow to that area.
Yeah.
That's probably what people are thinking I'm talking about. And I do have those and use those every once in a while, but I personally like the manual cupping. I think it's the right word, where you target the localized lymph node areas.
Yeah, and like things like dry brushing or like an easy place to start. I think almost everybody can do it.
I had mentioned that how I like using the manual cupping and then doing the dry brushing before showering.
Oh, I'm so sorry if I
no worries.
Yes. And do you want to kind of explain to people if they want to try dry brushing, like how they could maybe start at home? And because the cool thing about it is you're in total control of pressure, things like that. So
for sure. So the way that I understand it is pretty simple. You just start at your feet or farthest part of your heart and brush towards your heart. So I'll start on like one of my legs, brush up my leg, start on the other leg, brush up that leg, and then I'll start at the end of my arm. Or actually, sorry, I'll go to my stomach, and then I'll start at the end of my arm. You don't need to do your back though, because there's no lymph, like in your back or something.
Oh, that's interesting.
I heard something about that, how you don't actually have to do your back. Someone could fact check me if they know, but I've just always heard you don't have to do your back. So that's how you can implement dry brushing. I see someone also asked, why should people with fibroids or endo not use vibration plates? You'll want to fact check me if endo is included in that population. I know that fibroids aren't, or are, sorry, because the vibration can actually potentially dislodge the fibroids and cause issues in your body.
Oh, that's very, and yeah, which makes sense. Okay. And I also wanted to talk about, and I think that this is like very appropriate for this one more question, using it an at-home massager, like a handheld. Could that help with lymphatic drainage? And then would there be any problem with this for fibroids or endo? I don't know the answer.
I'm thinking they're talking about like the massager that goes like, right?
Yeah.
Okay. As long as you're not like doing it on your stomach or your uterus area, I'd probably say there wouldn't be any issues with fibroids or endo, so stay away from that area. But it should help with lymphatic drainage. It's not one of the most common used. Mostly people use that for like muscle repair or muscle recovery, sorry. But that would probably be helpful in helping support lymphatic drainage if you use it properly, because it still, helps stimulate movement. I probably wouldn't say it's my favorite, just because I like kind of getting like kind of movement in this way or something like that. But if you want to and you want to integrate that technique, I think it's good. I honestly have not seen any science on it though.
Okay. And what do you say for people who I know people like who get in like a highly toxic state have a very large problem like sweating naturally, like getting their body to start sweating. And so I know that there are a lot of people that worry about exercise when they can't sweat, like when it's hard for their body to start producing a sweat. So do you have any tips for that? I mean, I know starting with like sauna is sometimes helpful.
I was gonna say, so I personally was that person. I struggled to sweat when I was working out, and I would feel overheated and so uncomfortable. But thankfully, my gym has a sauna, so I've just been going into the sauna till I like slightly sweat a little bit, and then I'll start my workout, and then I'm already sweating, so my body is able to regulate my temperature a little bit better. Beyond going to the sauna in the beginning, maybe just like making sure you're not wearing too much clothing, staying hydrated, maybe drinking more, electrolytes, just don't drink too much. Would probably be the only things I could say could help. But for me, the sauna was my saving grace.
Okay.
for that issue. Yeah.
And I don't know like how, if you know the answer to this, obviously I forgot to say this at the beginning, but obviously Rachel and I are not doctors. So nothing we're saying is medical advice. We're just having a conversation and trying to give you like the helpful information to help you if you're dealing with any of these things. But, one of the things with mycotoxins is they tax both the kidneys and the liver because they're affecting your fluid balance and then also your detox, systems of detoxification. So, I don't know the answer to this, so I thought I would ask you, but what about supplementing with something like creatine when you are dealing with something like mold? Like if you're for example, like I take creatine, but I don't know if that's something that I, during at my worst when I was in, very sick from mold, if that's something that I should have kept doing or left off until, my body was better, or if that's something that might be helpful. Because there's also something with toxicity where it's very difficult to build muscle. I don't know why that is. Maybe you have a little more insight into that than I do, but kind of those two things, like someone who's trying to, maintain or build muscle and, was supplementing with something like creatine, if they should continue, or do you think it's best to leave it off?
From what I understand about creatine, it's really helpful in helping your body produce ATP as well as helping your muscles recover. So, if we're kind of thinking about the main benefits of creatine, I don't think creatine is going to have any sort of benefit in helping you detox mycotoxins at all, because that's not what it's there for. And I haven't seen any research on that. But since a lot of people struggle with muscle recovery as well as performance and energy production, continuing to take creatine could be a good idea for sure to help support that energy production, as well as like muscle recovery and performance and stuff like that, which could also help in building muscle. I personally did not have that issue. I build muscle way too easy, but many people struggle with building muscle, especially when they're going through chronic conditions. So creatine could be a really good option.
Okay. Okay. And then, okay. So the whole depersonalization issue completely and sort of trying to address that with people.
Oh, I think Catherine cut out, but I know what she was going to ask. So pretty much there's a common thing that a lot of people struggle with when going through mold toxicity or chronic conditions where they get disconnected to their bodies, and they kind of experience this sort of depersonalization. And so how I help people overcome this is with figuring out how to reconnect with their body. I mentioned before nervous system dysregulation is a really common reason why people may be affected by mycotoxin, and also why they may experience these symptoms or the development of these symptoms as well if mold isn't even in the picture. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. And so there's a lot that can go into this, but to give people like a quick actionable step that they can take to help reconnect with their body is number one, sorry, I just put two fingers up. Number one, deep breathing is one of the best ways to just get back into the moment and reconnect with your body. And then number two is tapping. So whether you're like tapping, you can literally tap anywhere. This is like one of the most common ones, or you could tap your face or your shoulders or whatever. And so if you couple tapping with deep breathing and really just trying to focus on the present moment, if you're having a hard time focusing on the present moment, find 5 things you can see, 4 things you can feel, 3 things you can touch. I may be doing this in the wrong order. I think it's 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and then 1 thing you can taste. That's how it goes. If you're having a hard time getting into the present moment, I highly recommend implementing that, and then focusing on deep breathing to help calm yourself down, help reconnect with your body, and then implement that with some tapping, which is one of the best ways to just be like, hey, I'm here, let's get back into the present moment and get out of this sort of depersonalization and disconnection from the body. That was a big thing that I struggled with. I don't think I talked about that actually in my article. This was actually something that I struggled with most, the first kind of like health issues that I developed that I had to heal from. I was completely disconnected from my body, complete zombie mode. And so the best thing I had to do to help my body heal was just connecting with it again. Because there was a lot of reasons I wanted to just hide inside myself, which made the symptoms worse. So that would be like a kind of practice that I would implement to help get into the present moment and connect with yourself again.
I love that. I'm going to start doing that too. Well, because also, I mean, I think sometimes, especially if you were an athlete or into fitness or had your identity at all, as part of like your, connected with your physical body, mold is something that's particularly hard on that.
Yeah.
And kind of makes it difficult to kind of find that again. And then maybe just, I guess we can kind of end with a little bit like how you get, if you have any techniques or tips on how to regain your energy, and just like maybe even energy and stamina, because there's a lot of, exercise, like there's an aversion to exercise, especially with chronic illness. For people, they're not wanting to use what energy they have to exercise. when they're healing. So if you have any
Yeah.
tips on that, would be great.
The first thing that I'll say, which may seem a little bit counterintuitive, that's not the right word, but I think you know what I mean, to what I have said before, is energy is something that you create. So if you're laying in bed with all of these symptoms expecting to suddenly wake up with energy, that's very unlikely. Probably not going to happen. Now, I'm not saying, oh, you just have to like get up and go work out. I am absolutely not saying that. What I'm saying is you need to be implementing the right nutrition and the right habits and the right supplementation in order to help heal your body and create that energy.
Mhm.
For example, it's been about 6 months since I've had mold toxicity, or sorry, since I moved out of my apartment. I could now say that I don't have, mycotoxins in my body because I've been through 2 protocols to help eliminate the mycotoxins. But I still notice some days where, or periods of time during the day where I'm like, I'm a little bit tired. And so when that happens, I'm like, okay, so what does my body need to help create this energy? Thankfully, I'm in a place where I'm able to do that. Some people have to figure out the tools that work best for them. I kind of have standard tools that I use. But whether it's eating a balanced meal, maybe I forgot to drink enough water, maybe I need electrolytes. Maybe I didn't sleep well the day before. Getting enough high quality sleep is really, really vital to creating that energy as well. Um, and then also, one of the best ways I've noticed that I create energy is just going outside. The
Mhm.
sun kind of just like fills up my battery, I guess.
Yeah.
And so, if you're struggling, or maybe you work from home, or maybe you're trying to get some motivation to go to the gym or just do anything, because sometimes that's how it is when you are struggling with chronic fatigue or some sort of chronic condition. Just go outside and maybe walk around or lay in the sun. I'd probably recommend walking around a little bit. um, when I struggled a lot with chronic fatigue, the biggest thing for me was just doing something,
Mhm.
because I found that doing something helps me create a little bit of energy to get through the rest of the day. I don't rely on caffeine at all. I don't need caffeine. And so I've never used any sort of stimulants to help create energy. I try to figure out what habits or things or foods that I can eat to help create some natural energy in me. And of course, I had to eliminate those mycotoxins. I had to go through the protocols and work on healing my body to get to that place. This is more so like the maintenance side of things. But if you're struggling with chronic fatigue a lot, work through those detoxification protocols. Focus on healing your gut. Focus on healing your cells. Your mitochondria are what create that ATP. If you're living in fight or flight, this can shut down the proper functioning of your cells. They can kind of go into what's called cell defense mode, where your body is not producing as much ATP, which is actually why people struggle with chronic fatigue when they have mycotoxin exposure. Their body senses that mycotoxia, it goes into cell defense mode and slows down the production of ATP. And so if you're not able to eliminate the mycotoxin, number one, and then focus on healing your cells, you're probably going to continue in that chronic fatigue state. So those are like the first things you need to focus on.
Mhm.
Um, and then focusing on creating energy, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, that does make sense. I mean, it makes sense to me. Does anyone have any questions that's joining us? Because we're gonna kind of open the floor to questions and then close. And then we'll post all of this like on our socials with links to the article Rachel wrote, so you can find how to find her if you want to work with her. Okay. What mold spores were you exposed to? You know?
I didn't get my apartment actually tested, just because it was so noticeable. But I had like pink mold and that like gray and green fuzzy mold in my apartment. Um,
So you had visible mold. So you
yes,
like
I had
you
visible
yeah.
mold, so I didn't have to test myself, and I didn't have to test my environment because I could see it. So I didn't have any sort of like functional lab saying what mold spores were in my body, because I knew that there was obviously mold spores in my body from all the mold that was flying around my apartment and that I could smell was getting into my body.
Yeah. And I mean, based on your symptoms, sometimes you can
Yeah.
know a little bit more about which mycotoxins you were exposed to. So
Yeah. If
yeah.
you're unsure, like if your mold isn't visible, I definitely like get your environment tested, get your labs done. But for me, I didn't need to.
And Amir is asking if you have any thoughts on ozone therapy to treat mycotoxins and other pathogens.
Ozone therapy is where you go into a device and there's like higher amount of oxygen, correct? I just want to clarify.
I mean, most ozone, and I think this is what Amir is talking about, is when they basically filter your blood through like an ozone machine, and it like reoxygenates it. It almost mechanically oxygenates your blood and then feeds it back into your body.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, from my experience working with microbalance and mini mold patients, a lot of people find it very helpful. The issue is it's not lasting, and the people that find it most helpful are those who are not in the moldy environment anymore, because you know, all like super oxygenating your blood is fantastic, but it's going to be, you know, depleted right away if you're going back to, you know, a moldy environment and then breathing in that mold. Because what Rachel said is correct. There is this cell danger response. And when your cells slam shut, not only are they not producing energy, they're not allowing oxygen in. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it could be helpful, but personally, I think as like with every other like treatment in helping you heal your body, is one treatment that you shouldn't be solely relying on. You need to make sure that you bring regulation to your body as a whole and look at it holistically instead of just trying to find that one treatment that could save your life, because could be really, really helpful in helping you improve your symptoms. But if you still have nervous system dysregulation or gut issues, you'll still be experiencing symptoms.
Okay. Well, anybody have any other questions for Rachel? And where I'm living, it's storming really bad. So I'm going to hopefully not cut out before it's over. But anyway, well, thanks for joining. Oh, here we go. Do either of you know the best technology to remove mold odor from air ducts while waiting to have them remediated? I have 3 air doctors and tried the bipolar ionization, but neither does a great job with odor. You can, and you'd probably need to talk to a professional about what is best, but you can do fogging of your ducts. And another thing is you can do some duct cleaning, but I would advise you to go to the National Air Duct Cleaner Association website to find somebody in your like who can service you, but that can help with odor. And it's probably moisture like in your air handler, and there's probably microbial growth. So you know, that's where the odor is coming from. So any kind of cleaning can probably do the best job for something like that, that's there. And then let's see. Do you do IV glutathione? Did you ever do IV glutathione, Rachel?
I didn't, but I took it topically.
Okay. And what do you think of using the Microbalance Health products for the nasal rinsing to kill spores in the sinuses?
I think that's really good. Yes. I personally didn't use it because I had a sinus like thing that I used already that I wanted to finish up. But working on eliminating the mycotoxins that are in your nose, because that's probably where mycotoxins are getting in, like the biggest area, is definitely really helpful.
Oh, and thanks, Lacey. She's found that ozone is most beneficial when you have an infection. I've heard the same. Many people that deal with like activated Lyme or chronic Lyme find it very beneficial for for infection. And have you heard of stem cell therapy?
I have heard of stem Cell therapy. I personally have never used it for either me or my clients, but I do see some emerging science on it being helpful in like mold toxicity or chronic conditions.
And I mean, there's a lot of published papers on like the PRP for treating injuries and things like that.
Yeah.
So, like that direct stem cell therapy. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I have no idea on the benefits as far as mycotoxins and mold illness, but I think it probably could have benefit with pain and things like that. So,
Yeah,
um,
I think the biggest thing that it supports with is like improving your immune system, probably like the functioning of your cells overall, as well as reducing inflammation, which are important parts in helping your body eliminate mold mycotoxins. So,
yeah. And Lacey, yes, you can fog with microbalance. The mold solution concentrate is what you fog with. Our foggers are ultra low volume, like cold mist foggers. So for your duct work, we have like kind of a specific little protocol for that because it would be different than using like a thermal fog that you would have to leave your house. So to, um, if you want to just leave a message on, I think I can message you through YouTube if you follow us. But I can send that information to you if you're interested. It's on our website too. Um, but yeah, you can fog with our products. That's the short answer. um, okay. Well, I think if no one
I
has,
see another one from
okay.
Nicole. She asked mold versus just aging. I would
Oh,
say that's when you go and get the testing done in your environment and in your body so you can be sure if it's mold or not. So if you're unsure, always get testing done.
yeah, that's a great. I mean, and is there? I mean, this is kind of circling back a little bit, but I mean, is there a pattern of weight gain or a certain type of weight gain that's more indicative of inflammation and mold versus just being
Um,
out of shape?
Possibly. It kind of just depends on how the mold is affecting your body. Typically, mold puts your body in a fight or flight state, which can increase your cortisol. And when you have increased cortisol, this can increase the amount of weight gain on your stomach, especially. And
Mm-hmm.
then men may notice the development of moobs, man boobs. So that's
Yeah.
a common thing that people will notice with high cortisol. So if the mold is causing you to have higher cortisol, you may notice weight gain in that area. But
Okay.
it could also just be high stress. There's a
Yeah.
lot of reasons this can happen. So if you are noticing, weight gain in your stomach, don't just be like, "Oh yeah, mold." That is a way
Yeah.
too easy conclusion to come to. So again, if you don't see mold in your environment, you don't know why you're having these symptoms, hire a professional like me or any sort of practitioner who can help you get to the root cause of these symptoms because we're talking about mold right now, but it could be many other things contributing to your symptoms, and understanding what is going on is key to helping you heal your body, overcome weight loss resistance, heal your gut, etc.
Yeah. I mean, and you can always, do some. We also sell like very inexpensive, like the little
Yeah,
plate, and you could.
yeah,
I mean, take it off the table, if it's, if you're struggling and just want to know, yes or no, that's what those are good for. Um,
absolutely. Yeah, I would highly
yeah,
recommend doing those as like a first line, especially because lab testing can be really expensive. If you don't have money for lab testing, that would be a good place to like first start if you're wondering if it's mold.
yeah.
Yeah.
Just kind of rule it out. Okay. Well, I think that's it. If no one has any more questions, but thank you so much for joining us, Rachel. It's been
Thank you
great.
for having
And
me.
I'm really sorry about, diffuser and we had one more question. Sorry, I missed it. Where is that? Oh, how well does using a diffuser and essential oils work for neutralizing? I think you mean odors. I mean, diffusing essential oils can be great for many things, your mood, your air. We do have our Citradrops dietary supplement can be used in a diffuser, and it's antifungal, antimicrobial, it's even antiviral. So that could be a solution. You just want to make sure that you're not like trying to cover smell with another smell. You're doing something to actually clean the air and remove the smell.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Even if you can't smell it, it does not mean it's gone.
Yeah, exactly. So it's important to, I guess, the scent of clean is no scent at all. So
yeah.
That's what you need to aim for sure. Especially
definitely would not recommend using artificial fragrances.
Yes.
That's not going to help your health either.
Yeah. So. And that it could also contribute to your toxic load.
Yes.
So you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. And everyone, thanks for joining us, and have a great night. And you can still write in comments and we'll answer them like after the live.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thanks. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.